I'm not hearing anything.
Can you hear us, Aaron? Thumbs up.
No,
Yep. Can you?
I can't hear a damn thing.
Okay. All right. Well,
Live from the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd
Who's
Allbaugh
speaking?
Show.
I can hear you, Lou.
And now, pursuing truth
No, I can't hear
wherever
a
it may
damn
lead,
thing.
here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
Across Wisconsin and worldwide on the Civic Media app, I'm Luke Mathers, not Todd Allbaugh. We are going to be joined shortly here, momentarily here, by friend of the Todd Allbaugh Show, Matt Flynn, just working on getting Matt set up to take over. We got Mr. Todd Allbaugh doing a little traveling today, so really grateful for Matt to be able to fill in, helping out Mr. Zommers here on the board in Madison. Aaron, how we doing on this Thursday afternoon?
Doing well. I imagine Todd is on a jet right now, hopefully not delayed.
On a jet airplane, yeah, hopefully taking care of his travels. Gonna be jealous of him getting to see the green and gold out in the West Coast this weekend. But as we work with Matt to get him connected here, if you want to join the conversation, 855-752-4842. That's 855-75-CIVIC. You can download the Civic Media app. We got a fun show for you in store with Matt Flynn guest hosting for Mr. Allbaugh. You're going to want to stay tuned in the 1 o'clock hour. Coming up in just under an hour, we will have your next chance to win in Civic Media's statewide grown-up gift list text to win contest. So if you've been listening throughout this week and you've already entered in for one of those 8 grand prizes, you'll also have an opportunity to win next hour either $100 or an overnight stay at the Chula Vista Resort in the Wisconsin Dells. So you want to stick with us. But
Luke,
Matt,
this
do
is
we
Matt.
have you?
This is Matt. I can hear you. I think they successfully hooked me up.
All right, Matt. Well, we're thrilled to have you here. I apologize that we had a little bit of a rough go to start, but Matt, it is all yours. You can take it away. We really appreciate you filling in for Todd here on this Thursday afternoon.
Terrific. Thanks a lot, Luke, and welcome everybody to the Todd Allbaugh Show. I'm Matt Flynn, broadcasting from Racine. Matt Flynn of Matt Flynn Direct. I'm the guest host for Todd. Todd is en route to Seattle, Washington. He obviously can't do the show in the airplane, so I'm his guest host and his friend. He's going to be broadcasting from Seattle tomorrow. That's where the Packers are playing the Seahawks. Our lines are open, 855-752-4842. No subject is off limits. All points of view are welcome. And remember, you're not woke if you don't know history. You're not woke unless and until you know history. And I want to welcome Mr. Zommers, producer, as always, this time for the guest host, Mr. Zommers. Great to have you with us as well.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've produced a show that you were hosting.
Well, it's great to be with you again. We have a lot to talk about, and I'm just going to start. And one of the things that people wrestle with in our party, we had a bad result on November 5th in the presidential election. Thank God in this state, Tammy Baldwin won, but unfortunately, Donald Trump won. And the question is, how do you reconcile your duties as an American, as a citizen, trying to unify the country and solve our problems, and yet knowing what Donald Trump has done and will try to do? And let me give you some ideas. One of the things that, frankly, bothers me a great deal is that some commentators will say things like, well, okay, he won fair and square. He won fair and square, so now we have to take him. The Wall Street Journal even said, well, thank God there won't be violence, without recognizing that there would have been if he lost, and the only reason there isn't is because he won. Let me dig down on this very deep. I do not think that there was fraud in the election that cost Kamala Harris the election, because we got 9% or 10% less of a vote in Manhattan than we normally do. 9 or 10% less in Chicago. And people around the world, even though Joe Biden did a better job on inflation than anybody else, people were punished. They were incumbents, there was inflation, they were punished. I get it. But don't let anybody tell you that he won fair and square. There were bomb threats called in to the Navajo Reservation in Arizona, to the polls. There were bomb threats called in to inner city polling precincts in Atlanta and around the country. And these came in, it looked like they were of Russian origin. So the question is, was it the Ruskies? Was it a false flag? Did Trump's people know about it? And if they didn't get involved in it directly, were they part of it? So what we can expect from this Republican Party going forward is that there'll be chicanery, threats of violence, bomb threats, in any way they need to do to try to win an election. In this particular case, as I say, I do not think that that was dispositive. I do not think that that's what tipped it against Kamala Harris. So just be careful when you're talking to people, when you're listening to them, make it very, very clear that no, this was not fair and square. Yes, he won, and we're not contesting that. But the fact of the matter is that this party will resort to violence and has resorted to it in the past. Now, let me tell you something else about it that should occur to everybody. This is a party under Trump, and remember something, a fish rots from the head down. Trump is corrupt, and he was elected president. So when he's acting in the interests of the country, we'll all get together, we'll vote for bills and so on. But this is a guy, if you'll recall, who had two of his senators, Tommy Tuberville of Alabama and Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma, block promotions of our military officers, our flag officers. Tommy Tuberville blocked them for 10 months. Markwayne Mullin blocked the general who was about to take command of our forces in Europe. They will deliberately injure the United States to try to get back to power. They will deliberately injure the United States. Rand Paul blocked the appointment of an ambassador to Niger a few years ago. Niger had a president that was favorable to us. He was overthrown by an Islamist insurgency, people who kill Christians in Africa. They got into power as a result of Rand Paul's not permitting us to send an ambassador there. They threw out the president, they invited the Ruskies in, and they tossed out our troops. So it's a complicated thing, but when you're talking to people, yes, we have a president, we respect the presidency. Yes, we will get together, for instance, and vote for the Defense Authorization Act and things that benefit the country. But do not forget that this is a party in power. There's a party in power that will resort to illegal means to stay in power. One thing that's occurred here locally, we talked about it on Todd Allbaugh's show the other day, I was a guest, was the issue of the fake electors in our state. Other states have prosecuted their fake electors. Michigan, Georgia, Nevada, Arizona, but not Wisconsin. Our Justice Department has not, to this day, prosecuted a fake elector. In June, the Justice Department filed single forgery charges against 3 individuals, a Trump staffer, another guy, but not one of our fake electors. And then just the other day, they filed 10 more felony counts, but only against those 3 people. Not against Ron Johnson, who was walking around with Michigan state electors in his pocket, telling his chief of staff to send them to Pence to try to stop the certification of the vote. What is the Wisconsin senator doing with the Michigan fake electors in his pocket? Voss, who is the one who set up the conference room for the fake electors to meet in. Fitzgerald, who suggested it, the congressman, he was a state senator at the time. And they were very sneaky about it. Remember, they all got directives. Don't tell anybody. There is a principle of criminal law that if you try to conceal your actions, that's evidence of having committed the crime, not just of obstruction. Guy robs a bank or a liquor store, runs away and changes his clothing and puts on a wig. That's admissible in court as proof that he did the robbery, did the burglary. In this case, our Justice Department has said, well, we're going after these three guys because they tricked the fake electors. They defrauded the fake electors. I will say to his credit that Tony Evers was asked about that, and he just chuckled. He said they knew exactly what they were doing. And I'm saying that too. I'm backing the governor up. The fake electors knew exactly what they were doing. And they have not been prosecuted. One of them is on the Wisconsin Election Board, the Wisconsin Election Commission. Another one was an elected official up in Brown County. They were not defrauded by Voss and Trump, Fitzgerald, Ron Johnson. They were in on it. They were in on it. And there should have been a grand jury or a John Doe summoned and asked them in detail what went on. This to me looks pretextual. It looks as if somebody is checking the boxes, going through the motions. If there had been a proper and legitimate prosecution in a timely way, that would have affected our state in a lot of ways. I think that Rebecca Cook very likely could have won the congressional seat against Van Orden in western Wisconsin. I don't know if Kamala Harris would have won, maybe not, but the point is it would have been the right thing to do, the right thing to do. So my message here in this first segment is I think our party has to be a lot more aggressive than they have been in what they say and how they respond to Trump and the Republicans. And even though it's absolutely true that we are Americans, we will stand with our country. We have a party in power and people in power who we have to stand up to when it's appropriate. We'll come back after the break, and there is a lot more to talk about. Back after the break.
All right. Well, we got a couple people on the phone lines. Right now we have Angie in Monroe and Kurt in Madison.
Okay, I'll after the break, I'll say let's have Angie and then Kurt. Okay.
Sounds good. And yeah,
Great,
if other people call in, can you see if I'm doing like the phone thing? I don't know how big the screen is, or
No, the screen I can't see Beans. I
Okay,
see your
gotcha.
thumb. Is that you? I see you.
yeah. Okay. So
But you can break on the air and say, Matt, we have Gina Beauclair if you want. That's fine.
yeah.
That's
Okay.
cool.
I'll just do something like that.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you.
Could you see the fingers for like how many minutes were left? If I do this, that should be somewhat
Okay.
visible.
No,
at
I
least,
didn't
right?
see it, but hold it up that big and then I can see because you're kind of tiny there. Yeah.
Right.
Stick them
I
up
can-
big. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. And then we have a minute until we're back.
Thank you. Good to be with you, Zummers. Good to be with you.
You as well.
Soon, wake up, sleep better, and save at Verlo.
The holidays are here, and it's nearly time to pick a present from our grown-up gift list with our Civic Media statewide Text to Win contest. Listen while you work for the keywords to text for your chance to win $100 cash, an overnight vacation at Chula Vista Resort, and be entered to win one of our grand prizes, a robot vacuum, new luggage, humidifier, espresso machine, and more on our grown-up gift list at civicmedia.us. Just download the Civic Media app and listen weekdays at 7-11.
On this side of the law, on that side of the law, who is right, who is wrong, who is for and who's against the law? Well, you see, I didn't really mean you any harm, but
We're
I
back
simply
on the
couldn't
air.
make it on the farm.
We're back on the air, and
When
we have
the
some
land
callers.
don't give a lot,
Our
you gotta
lines are
do with
open,
what you got.
855-752-4842. First, we'll go to Angie of Monroe. Angie, thanks for calling. What's on your mind today, Angie?
Yeah, I was just going to make a funny comment about Trump being on the Time magazine, but your topic is so much better. Yeah, I actually regret my vote for Josh Call all over this topic that you were talking about, and I do not plan on voting for him again for not going after the electors. So I hope they plan on a good replacement for him. That's just my opinion about Josh Call.
Angie, well, thank you. You know, I know Josh, and I knew his mom, Peggy Lautenschlager. She was a good friend of mine. Josh is a friend. I like Josh a lot. But I think that we have got to step up the aggressiveness of our representation here in the state. And I don't mean in an untoward way, but this, to me, if Ron Johnson has the Michigan state electors in his pocket and tries to get them to Pence to stop the certification, why did he do that? Why is he innocent? And if all 10 of them go in there sneaking around, told to keep it secret, told to keep it secret, told to keep it secret, and yet the statement is that they were defrauded by whom? By Trump? They support Trump. The whole thing, frankly, to me is pretextual. And I think going forward, we got to do it a lot better. Angie, thanks a lot for calling in. Next, we go to Kurt, I believe in Madison. Kurt, my friend, thanks for calling. What's on your mind today, Kurt?
Yeah, Tom Hartman had a guest on. His name was Stephen Spoonamore. He's a data scientist expert. I hope you get a chance to watch it. I text the link for it for YouTube. He talks about all the years he's been monitoring these machines across the country. And he says typically he's never seen a variation of more than 1% between the votes tabulations. And he talks about states where the numbers were just grossly out of whack, like Pennsylvania was, I think he said 32%, and Arizona 32%. I don't like to be a conspiracy guy, but with all the powers that be to get this criminal back in power, I do believe something was at work.
You know, that's a very interesting statement. A good friend of mine called me. He lives out actually in Seattle. He lives there. And he thought very much the way you do and about these correlations. But it's also true that in the exit polls, and they're a lot cruder and they're a lot less precise than other kinds of polling, the Democrats clearly got fewer votes in some constituencies than we had in the past. And we frankly just flat out got 9% fewer votes in Manhattan, Chicago, and a lot of other places. So when I say, and it's not conspiracy theory to think that the Republican Party, if they thought they could get away with it with Russian involvement, would do exactly what you're saying. And there was a clerk out in Denver who went to prison because she turned over, but she publicized the access code to the polls, and she turned over information that happened in Michigan too. I think we have to be vigilant about that. There's absolutely no question we have to be vigilant about it. The only question in my mind is, did that change the election? Because we don't want to get into one of these Dominion machine things the way Trump did. And I think, and this is, we don't have the House, we don't have the Senate, we don't have the presidency. but maybe a DA, probably a state DA, because the federal DAs, prosecutors are all being switched over. Possibly a good, well, John Chisholm, our DA, was one of the best. Kent Lovern, who's coming in, they can convene a John Doe and they can investigate this in individual states. But Kurt, I don't discount what you're saying. I don't discount what you're saying. But there did appear to be a wave of voting that was reduced in our favor in large municipalities where this did not happen. And so that's all I can say. I don't have a crystal ball, and I believe it does merit further investigation. Thank you very, very much.
And we also have Gene in Eau Claire on the line.
Gene in Eau Claire, my old friend. Gene, you used to call into Matt Flynn Direct all the time. It's great to hear. Gene, what's on your mind today?
Well, it's wonderful to hear your voice, and I hate to interrupt it because I always learn a lot from you. But thank you for being on. I'm so excited that Todd had you come in and sub for him. I'd love to hear you more and more. Everything you've said is just outstanding, Matt, and I believe that something isn't right here either, but I can't put my finger on it. But I do know for a fact dirty ads from the Americans for the Prosperous were running nonstop. We weren't getting a lot of information from local television stations of things that Trump did. We have to fight back, but we need to, they need to use the law and enforce the law as it was intended. I didn't know that a felon could be president of the United States. I didn't know a guy who would not give his taxes, before he became the president because he was being investigated and all this stuff federally. And then he's still the president, and he's doing all kinds of things that were brought out to the public, that were illegal. And the different things that he has done, it just stuns me, Matt. I can't believe that he could put off all of his trials where he was guilty. A lot of people pled guilty. Our fake electors admitted that somebody was taking them, directing them, and keeping it secret. I mean, if somebody was taking me down a hall or I had special people with me getting me into a place I shouldn't be in, I mean, I think I would be a little scared and wondering what the devil's going on. I mean, come on, Matt. We've been fooled so much. I just can't believe it. But thank you so much for being on there. You have a great day. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Gene. And you hit the nail on the head. If people say, let's sneak around a little bit, there's something wrong. And these 10 electors knew there was something wrong because they sneaked around a little bit. We're coming up on the next very short break, and we'll be back. We have a lot to talk about, and a lot of you are on the phone. We'll get to every call. Back very shortly.
Well, I didn't really think that I did wrong. Just as long as I stayed here where I belong. I did the only thing I could, same as anybody would. Yes, I was simply trying to get along. On this side of the law, on that side of the law. Who is right, who is wrong, who is for and who's against the law?
Welcome to Madison's Real News and Great
All
Conversation.
right, then we have LA Tom and Joe in Madison.
Great. We'll take them both. LA Tom and Joe in Madison. Great.
At civicmedia.us or the Civic Media app.
From Chicago, Class 3 milk prices are continuing the rally they started yesterday afternoon. How should dairy farmers react? I'm Stephanie Huff for the Midwest Farm Report, along with you midday on a Thursday. Dairy broker and analyst Ryan Yonkman joins us from Everegg. He says the lift in milk prices this time of year has a name, and he's got advice on how to play it to your advantage.
Look, we would say this. Back in September when we had the rally we did, that was very seasonal, very on time. Very much usually a place to take advantage of opportunity. You get through that, and you never know if you're going to get another look at a rally. Sometimes you get something Thanksgiving. Sometimes you get what we call Santa Claus rally. We're getting the Santa Claus rally now. And to me, for any dairy in the country, this is, in our opinion, your late look, right? Your late fall rally, whatever you want to call it. to take opportunity of removing risk going into at least the first half of next year.
We'll take another look at Class 3 milk prices in just a moment. Ryan Yonkman joining us. He's a dairy broker and analyst with Everegg.
Pioneer brand Z-Series soybeans are bred to defy expectations, so it's no surprise they're getting rave reviews, and that has more than farmers talking. In fact, a grain elevator wrote, "Sweet mother of pearl, trailer after trailer of Z-Series. It's never ending. We need a break." Safe to say, everyone is feeling the impact of Z-Series soybeans. Unleash your greatest harvest yet at pioneer.com/new era.
There goes Pam Yonke across Wisconsin in her suburban truck. Thanks to Equity Livestock Cooperative, marketing your livestock, financing your operation, and supporting the livestock community since 1922. And Cleary Building Corp. Visit clearybuilding.com to see the Cleary difference. Be sure to keep up with Pam and her travels at MidwestFarmReport.com and on Facebook at Midwest Farm Report, on Instagram at MWF Report, or by downloading the Midwest Farm Report app.
Thursday from Chicago, Class 3 milk prices continue their Santa Claus rally, as we heard from Ryan Yonkman earlier. The January Class 3 milk contract is up 33 cents at $19.85 a hundredweight, and the February Class 3 milk contract is up 29 cents, trading at $19.78 a hundredweight. Grain markets are moving in the opposite direction. Cash corn is down a nickel at $4.43 1/4. 2025 new crop corn is down 2.5 cents at $4.41 1/2. Cash soybeans are trading 3 1/4 cents lower at $9.22 1/4, and 2025 new crop soybeans are down 3 3/4 cents at $10.10 3/4. And July new crop wheat is down a nickel at $5.74 1/2. For the Midwest Farm Report, I'm Stephanie Hoff.
This is your local civic media radio station. Want to hear even more? Anytime? Find all of it at civicmedia.us.
It may look pretty outside, but it does not feel like it. With high temperatures today trying to tap 10 degrees, those feisty winds are really making it feel more like 5 to 15 below. Overnight lows bottom out near 0, and for tomorrow, slightly warmer, rising to near 20. I'm meteorologist Brittany Merlot. It's 3 degrees at our studios.
The Maggie Dawn Show.
Jeffrey from Madison.
I worked for the city of Madison for 34 years. Act 10 cost me $42,000.
Yep.
In 1977, the state of Wisconsin passed a law that says public employees cannot strike. With Act 10, now we can't bargain for working conditions and benefits, so they basically turned public employees into second-class citizens.
Yes.
The Maggie Dawn Show. Weekdays from 2 till 4 on your local civic media radio station and on the Civic Media app.
Are you prepared for an emergency or disaster? Because it's not a matter of if, but when. Don't find yourself saying,
when the storm rolls in, my time to find a pet-friendly evacuation center will have run out.
The scorching heat wave will leave me powerless to cool my insulin.
I'll face a hurricane without meds. Now that's a tough...
Welcome back. Welcome back. Our lines are open. Our lines are open, and we have people on the lines, and we're going to go to them right away. First of all, L.A. Tom, my friend. Thanks for calling. What's on your mind today, L.A. Tom?
Hey, Matt. First off, talking about the Ruskies and, calling in bomb threats and other voting suppression tactics that took place around the country that our corporate media, unfortunately, did not cover very much. Also, voter suppression, the Electoral College needs to go because it suppresses the votes in places like Illinois and Manhattan and L.A. Because if you're putting all of the emphasis on those areas, which are the battleground states, it makes other people less likely to go out and vote in the kind of numbers that they normally would if they actually had a stake or had a say in who our president is going to be. And third, I just wanted to ask you a question. Why don't the Democrats run and invoke Franklin Delano Roosevelt's name, and that they're running for office to complete FDR's, who was elected 4 different times, the second Economic Bill of Rights, and actually run and talk about the history? You know, we're in this problem right now because every 100 years, different characters, but we don't learn from history. We're back in 1925 at this point, really. And the thing is, the Democrats should have been saying all along, here's FDR, here's Lyndon Johnson, here, Eisenhower, look what Reagan did. He went and took the tax rate from, 90% down to 37%. I mean, they should be telling the story. If we don't have any narrative on the Democratic side, and we need to be telling the story because our story is good.
Well, Tom, no, thanks for calling in. And, the question of how we're conducting our campaigns, obviously, I don't run the Democratic Party. For 2 terms, I was the chair of our state party, and I had a lot of input on what our message was. But 2 things that you raised. One is nobody mentions the bomb threats, for Pete's sake, on the Navajo Reservation. The Navajo Reservation and the inner city around the country by a Russian source that may or may not have been a Russian source to benefit Trump. Nobody even mentions it. I'm not saying that there is enough fraud that would have overturned the election, but there was violence. That is a form of a bomb threat is violence. And secondly, Franklin Roosevelt is really the father of the modern Democratic Party. Obviously, it goes back to Thomas Jefferson, but he is the father of it. There's no question about that. And Joe Biden did a superb job in trying to complete that kind of economic program. And you're right, everybody runs away from it and they try to run in the middle and all this stuff. And I think it's wrong, but that was an excellent point. Thank you for calling. Joe and Madison, my friend, thanks for calling. Joe, what's in your mind today?
I'm really grateful that Tom was expanding on FDR and his contribution to Democratic Party, because I wanted to go back to a line that I think is so important that FDR said. He was talking about how hated he was by the business interests in the country because of the programs that he had put in place to save the rest of us from the terrible times of the Depression. And he had this great line. He said, "I welcome their hatred." Just this buoyant, "I welcome their hatred." I think we need to tap onto that kind of chutzpah, that kind of moxie, that kind of we aren't going to. I just hear from so many people that they feel kind of, dispirited would be a good way of saying it. Defeated would be another way of saying it. And I just think we need to gear up and to remember that incredible example of all that he went through during the Depression, and then to be able to say, "I welcome their hatred." What a great line, and what a great way to sort of say we can go forward despite everything that's been happening. Thanks a lot, Matt. It's so great to hear you again. I hope you can return to the air again and again. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you very much, Joe. And I agree with you. I love that line. And he was much more aggressive than our people are now. He was much more aggressive. For instance, Social Security was passed in 1935 over the objections of the Republican Party, and only because when it was before the Supreme Court, they were about to hold it unconstitutional. I'm not kidding. Social Security. And they were so scared by Roosevelt that one guy flipped in 5-4. They upheld the constitutionality of Social Security. And the Republicans, when they ran against him in 1940, they said, well, we want to improve Social Security. And he got up there and he mocked them. He laughed at them. He said, they say they want to improve Social Security. Of course they do. Of course they do. We don't have that kind of aggressiveness and very skillful aggressiveness, unfortunately. So couldn't agree more. Great to hear your voice again. And we are going to go back to some other subjects. We have Mr. Zommers is monitoring the calls from Mr. Zommers. There are other calls right now.
We do. We have Tom and Jackson on the line.
Tom and Jackson, my friend. Thanks for calling. What's in your mind today, Tom?
Hi, Matt. Great to hear you on the air again. I hope to hear you more. I agree with what all your previous callers have said, but there's something that's not being talked about that I really think was one of the key factors of why the Democrats lost this time around. And I think it was the real focus on pro-abortion that
I lost you, Tom. I think we lost the connection. Mr. Zomers,
Yeah,
do we have
it
Tom?
seems like it dropped. Must have driven through a tunnel or something.
Okay, Tom of Jackson, if you could call back, Mr. Zomers will put you through. So thank you very, very much. And I see him picking up his phone. And Mr. Zomers, if we have Tom, stick him back through.
Yes, Tom in Jackson. We should be able to hear him now.
Okay, Tom, go ahead.
Okay. Every small county, every rural county in the country was red this time, turned red, everyone. And I believe that the reason that is that the pro-life people really made an effort. And on the flip side, I think the Democrats lost voters, especially women voters, because, and I hate to say this, I think there's many of them that feel guilt about what's happened since 1973 and that there are 50 million abortions. And I think the ones that have gone through that did not want to vote. And so with those two together, it was the nail in the coffin. And I hate to say that, but I think that needs to be looked at. There needs to be a coming together with Republicans on this issue, you know, not so 100% one way and 100% the other, which is, I hope you see what I mean.
Yeah, Tom, thanks for calling in. Let me tell you my view, and this has to do more with the presentation of the issue. Here's the deal. Many, perhaps most women who seek out abortions are faced with very, very grave potential health problems, including threats to their life. And there was at least one woman, I believe it was in Georgia, who died because the doctor said, "You're not sick enough. We're afraid we'll be prosecuted." And I think the way to present that was if a woman goes to, the baby, the fetus is dead, for instance, the woman could get sepsis, she has sepsis, and she goes into the emergency room and they say, we can't treat you. We can't do anything for you because we're afraid of prosecution. So they go out to the parking lot. They're crying. Their husband's crying, hugging them. They wanted the baby. But the baby is dead, or the baby can't survive. The mother's health is threatened. I think when it's presented that way, that was a very, very effective way to present the issue, because in Idaho, for instance, there's no exception for the life of the mother. Texas, they say there is, but here's the anomaly, and let's be very blunt about this. In Wisconsin, you have 72 DAs, and probably half of them see themselves in Congress or governor. In Texas, same kind of thing. To prosecute a doctor for doing an abortion might get them on court TV, might get them some publicity. And so it's a very, very, very real, legitimate threat. In my way of thinking, the only way is to restore, in effect, Roe v. Wade with legislative status. And why do I say that? Read Roe v. Wade sometime. Everybody talks about Roe v. Wade. Nobody's read it. I bet that there aren't 10% of the people listening to this broadcast that have read Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade says in the first 3 months, there can be no restrictions. The second 3, moderate restrictions. In the final trimester, perhaps a little more. Very, very vague. The idea being, at what point do you want medical personnel who actually are licensed? What kind of things should the medical profession talk about? And the medical profession, I think, has reached a consensus about protecting women's health. And so the idea that somehow there are late-term abortions sort of willy-nilly is ridiculous. Women are bitterly disappointed frequently when they realize that they can't carry their child to term. And it is cruel. And Idaho passed a law that said if you leave the state to get an abortion somewhere else, that's a felony. Ridiculous. And there's a guy that put in a bill saying that they should get the death penalty for doing an abortion. There is a degree of neurosis, there's a degree of really psychosis on the part of some people that are attacking on this issue from the right. But your point is that did we as a Democratic Party present it correctly? And you may very well be right, because all of the data shows that whatever votes net, on a net basis, Democrats picked up on the issue was not sufficient to overcome the votes that they lost.
We've got a bunch of callers on the line, too.
Okay, well, you know something? Callers are my interviewees. Let's do the next one.
All right, we've got Larry in Sun Prairie.
Larry in Sun Prairie, my friend. Thanks for calling. What's in your mind today, Larry?
Yeah, you were talking about legal systems, and the progressives got to start getting better at it. What sticks to my cross still is when Prosser was elected to the Supreme Court. I think he ran against Koppelberg. She was actually had won the election, and then this county or city clerk, Kathy Nicholas, who had taken her laptop home with all the vote totals, and opens it up the next morning. Found like 15,000 more votes, and it turned the election over to Prosser. And Prosser was kind of a weasel, he gets all this acclimate. They named the court library after him, which they just took away. But he spoke at one of my union meetings one time. We invited him there. I mean, he's a nice guy, but I'm sure he was pretty savvy. He was a pretty good lawyer, I guess. But nobody ever talked about,
right. I'm familiar with the issue, and thank you for raising it. She was a clerk, I think it was in Brookfield, and it affected the Waukesha vote, and that's exactly right. She went, what the hell is she doing taking this stuff home? Now, that election occurred well over 10 years ago, so it's not something we can revisit. I'm not naive. The Republicans would do something if they thought they can get away with it. Fortunately, we have a great DA in Milwaukee. I think we have a great DA in Madison. We have an attorney general. And I think the ability to get away with that kind of chicanery is very much reduced. But I do not put it behind. Listen, when you have a party that won't pass even a budget bill if a Democrat's president, won't promote our military officers. I was a military officer, very low ranking. I was Lieutenant JG. They will not promote generals. They won't promote admirals. They won't approve of ambassadors to areas where our allies are under attack. They will deliberately injure the United States to stay in power. That's just the sad fact of the matter. And there's no getting around that. So would they pull something? Yes, they would pull something. And we have to be vigilant, entirely vigilant. Remember something. History occurs every second of the day. Whether you're awake, whether you're not, we've got to follow it. Now we're going to another brief break. We'll be back, and there's a lot more. And keep everybody on the line. We're going to get back to the callers. This show is about the callers' hours. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. We'll take your calls in just a moment.
Don't carry me too far away. Whoa, big on jet and light up. 'Cause it's here that I've got to stay. Whoa, big on jet and light up. Carry me to my home. Whoa, big on jet and light up. 'Cause it's there that I belong.
This is Madison's Real News and Great Conversation, 92.7 WMDX.
Attention. If you suffer from consistent pain in your joints caused by arthritis, overuse,
Yeah,
or
we have
injury,
Wisco Paul, Sharkey in Racine, and Karina in Milwaukee. So a few people there.
Wisco Paul, Sharkey, is that his name?
Yes.
Sharkey in Racine, and Corrine in Milwaukee.
Or
I'll take them in
Karina.
order. Karina, yeah, good, thank
You
you.
may request a free consultation from QC Kinetics by calling 608-384-0897. Instead of masking the symptoms, it goes to the root of the problem to resolve it at its source. Already used by thousands of satisfied patients nationwide, this joint pain therapy is available right now to the public, but only for qualified candidates. Again, to find out if you're a viable candidate for this therapy, you may request a free consultation by calling QC Kinetics at 608-384-0897. That's 608-384-0897.
Thanks to Total Wine, you saved more on all the gifts for the ones you adore. Wine, spirits, beers, all nestled on shelves. Got some advice from our helpful elves. Oh, so many gifts to explore when you go to Total Wine and More. Bottles so delightful, whoa. Priced so amazingly low.
Curbside pickup available and the lowest prices for over 30 years only at Total Wine and More.
Drink responsibly, B21.
Are you ever questioning when life will slow down? Are you ever thinking of just relaxing and enjoying the simple things?
30 seconds.
All of this is possible,
Very
even
good.
while still being in the workforce.
I find it very, very easy to be true. I find myself.
Welcome back to the Todd
alone
Allbaugh
when each
Show.
day's
Matt Flynn
through.
directs, sitting as
I'll
guest
admit
host.
that I'm a
Todd
fool
is on the
for
way
you
to Seattle, Washington, to broadcast tomorrow from Seattle, where the Packers are playing the Seahawks. We have some more callers. This show is very caller friendly. Our callers are our interviewees. We learn as much from the callers or more than we do anywhere else on the show. We're going to take you in order. Do not hang up. We're going to start with Wisco Paul. Thanks for calling, Wisco Paul. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Matt, nice to hear your voice on the radio again. Are you still there?
Yes, I am, Paul. Go ahead. What's on your mind?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm driving, so once in a while things get messed up here. But at any rate, nice to hear your voice on the radio again. And I was riding with Biden, and I think it was too late not to let him run, although he did have a bad debate. But we'll never know for sure. But my question is, you spent $1.5 billion, and I think the border was the big thing, because I don't know how else Trump wins without that border issue. So thanks for taking my call, Matt.
Well, you know, I agree with you, and I'm going to tell you why. As you know, I'm riding with Biden. I was for Biden early on in 2020 when everybody else was for Bernie and Elizabeth Warren, this one, that one. And I also said publicly on this air as Todd Allbaugh's desk, I thought it was a mistake to yank him, even though he had a bad debate. He was the incumbent president, done a lot, and you can't overcome that. Having said that, I think Kamala Harris did a terrific job with very little time. What, does she have 100 days or something? And, you know, and then she's running against a guy who had been president, even though I think he's a convicted felon, but he did a lousy job. But it's hard if there's a president running against somebody who isn't a president. That's a tough matchup. When it comes to the immigration question, I also agree with that. And here's the deal: when you had people watching on the evening news every day, hundreds of migrants roaming around New York and Chicago with nowhere to go, being put up in hotels, it had clearly broken down, and we were taking people into the country and then giving them citations to come back, and half of them didn't come back and all that. So finally, Biden did put in some stringent orders, and it calmed down a little bit, but it was probably seen as too little too late. The concern I have, quite frankly, is that Donald Trump has sadistic tendencies. The way he tried to stop people before is taking children away from their mothers. You know, a poor woman comes in with a baby in her, literally, or with like a 4-year-old girl or a 6-year-old girl. They take the kid away. In some cases, they couldn't find the parent again. That's flat out sadistic. The mother's sobbing. What the hell is that all about? So the problem is that people saw this stuff on television. They didn't like it. There should be a legal process. We talked till we were blue in the face about how there had been a bipartisan bill, blah, blah, blah. Trump sank it. But most people really didn't think even the bipartisan bill was enough. And so you're left with a choice of what is perceived as open borders against sadism. That is a terrible thing. That's why it was such a close election. Thank you for calling. As always, Wisco Paul Sharkey of Racine, my friend. Thanks for calling, Sharkey. What's on your mind today?
Good afternoon. Thanks for taking my call. For clarity purposes, our current president is still got immunity. Is that correct?
Of course, yeah. According to the Supreme Court, which I think was a crooked decision, quite frankly. But yeah, he has immunity, right?
So he'll have it. So when does his immunity end and the next guy's immunity begins?
At noon on January 20.
Yeah, so there's the time there. There's the stopwatches going away, and I'm seeing what they're doing in the proper direction and making some trouble because they got a lot of work to do before the regime changes. And so I think most people might be still unclear between the two offices, who's what and who's where. But you kind of cleared it up for me.
Yeah, it's the oath of office at 12:01 p.m. right after noon on January 20. Trump is president. But you raise an interesting question, and I've said this before. Do not take this literally, but suppose Biden arrested Trump, arrested the Supreme Court, sent them to Guantanamo. Okay, he has immunity. That's an official act. Now that's obviously absurd. He's not going to do it, but Trump has threatened to do some things like that. He's threatened to use the army against the civilian population to quash protests and to do this and that. Remember in Lafayette Square when he had the Bible, he held it upside down and walked across to the church to try to look pious, sanctimonious. He was trying to look pious. Do you know what they did? They roughed up some of those protesters. They smashed some cameras. Guy got hit in the face. This is in Lafayette Square in Washington, D.C. So Trump will test that. I do not think that even this Supreme Court, as bad as it is, corrupt, frankly, as it is, the six tarantulas are stupid enough, if he ordered someone killed, would say that's an official act. But their opinion basically encompasses that kind of thing. Short answer, what Biden is trying to do is confirm as many federal judges as possible and issue clemency to people with nonviolent crimes who have been sentenced to prison for extended periods, totally unnecessarily. He just granted clemency to 1,500 people, and he's going to continue to do it. We're coming up on a short step away from this program, and then we're going to start the second hour, and there's a lot more to talk about, and there's a lot more callers. I know there are people on the line. Do not hang up. We'll get back to you right when we get back.
I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. I keep my eyes wide open all the time. I keep the ends out for the tie that binds. Because you're mine, I walk the line. Because you're mine, I walk the line. Because you're
and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX.
All right, I got to step away for a second and use the bathroom, but I'll be right back.
Okay, how many people do we have on the line?
Right now, it is Karina in Milwaukee, and L.A. Tom called back in. He wanted to chime in on someone's comments about abortion.
Okay, we'll take Karine. Usually I don't take a guy twice in the same.
Right.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Yeah, before we actually start, I will let you know if anybody else calls in the meantime.
Yeah, thanks very much.
All right, be right back.
Clothes that fit your style and your life. At Equability, they adapt your jackets, pants, and more for dexterity or mobility challenges. Feel confident, comfortable, and ready for anything. Visit EQUability.co to make your clothes easier to wear today.
Local radio for you and your community. It's Civic Media's mission with stations across Wisconsin. Find your favorites at civicmedia.us. This is 92.7 WMDX Columbus, Madison's home for real news and great conversation. A Civic Media station.
ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. New York and New Jersey lawmakers signing off on a letter to federal authorities asking for more information and transparency on the mysterious drone sightings in the Northeast. ABC's Ariel Resheff has more.
They often fly with their lights off, making them harder to detect.
between 4 to 180 sightings per day, most often between 6 and 11 p.m. The unidentified aircraft spotted in the skies above military installations, neighborhoods, and even President-elect Donald Trump's Bedminster Golf Club.
President-elect Trump rang the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange today. Time magazine also naming him Person of the Year for their annual list. The U.S. says it believes video circulating showing a man found in Syria after the fall of the Assad regime is Travis P. Timmerman, an American who went missing from Hungary earlier this year. The State Department says it's also determined to find and locate Austin Tice. The journalist was kidnapped 12 years ago. This is ABC News.
Your news, conversations, and a whole lot of fun. It's all on your local Civic Media radio station or the Civic Media app.
For 92.7 WMDX News, I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. For decades, Wisconsin had higher union participation than the national average. Our labor laws from the 50s and 60s were seen as turning points for the rights of workers. That is, until Act 10 passed in 2011. UW-Madison labor education professor Michael Childers says Act 10 changed the ability of public sector workers in Wisconsin to have influence over their workplace.
It was the first state in the nation that allowed formally for public sector bargaining, and then became the first to basically greatly curtail bargaining rights for all but police and fire in the state.
Wisconsin experienced the largest decline of union membership in the U.S. over the last decade. Now that a Dane County judge has struck down most of Act 10 and Republicans have filed an appeal, the case is almost certain to end up in front of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And if Act 10 is struck down by the High Court, it could open the door for a resurgence of union engagement across the state. And after Madison West High School's football team was left out of the playoffs, coaches are proposing changes to how Wisconsin does their postseason. They meet tomorrow. With more, here's Civic Media Sports Director Jimmy Kuska.
Wisconsin high school football coaches are proposing a drastic reform in how teams qualify for the playoffs. That comes after the WIAA admitted it made a mistake in setting this year's playoff field. Citing a lack of transparency in the WIAA's computerized seeding and selection process, the WFCA laid out its plan on December 4th. Coaches will vote on it December 13th, with the hopes that it will reach the WIAA's Board of Control in February for adoption as soon as the 2025 season. You can see the plan and learn more about it on our website. For Civic Media News, I'm Jimmy Kuska.
Tomorrow, the Wisconsin Football Coaches Association will decide whether to forward their new plan to the WIAA. They say their new model is more fair. I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. You're listening to 92.7 WMDX News.
The Packers' Luke Musgrave returns. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. Packers tight end Luke Musgrave is back at practice after injuring his left ankle against the Vikings late September and finally having surgery about 2 weeks later.
I definitely knew that I hurt it, but we didn't know that it probably needed surgery until after the Rams week.
How's your body feeling now?
Feeling good. Still getting back into it. Still working into the ankle, but body feels good. Been in the weight room a lot, so it's been really good.
Some good news for the Badgers football team. Wide receiver Trek Kekahuna changed his mind last night and decided to stay at Wisconsin, but both quarterbacks, Braden Locke and Tyler Van Dyke, have entered the transfer portal. Baseball, the Brewers
Be
added
back
two
in
minor
just
league
over 2
pitchers,
minutes.
Grant Wolfram from the Rangers,
Remember, I have
Connor
the
Thomas from the Cardinals,
5-minute
Brewers GM Matt Arnold,
contest
World
thing
Baseball
from
meetings
Todd.
in Dallas.
Shall I do that before Corrine?
That would probably be a good idea.
Okay, I'm going to kick it to you, and then if I'm supposed to recite a word, tell me, okay?
Okay, Todd says the word in it, so we should be good.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Refreshed, keeping you informed, entertained, and connected locally across the Civic Media Network.
It may look pretty outside, but it does not feel like it. With high temperatures today trying to tap 10 degrees, those feisty winds are really making it feel more like 5 to 15 below. Overnight lows bottom out near 0, and for tomorrow, slightly warmer, rising to near 20. I'm meteorologist Brittany Merlot. Currently, it's 4.
At Chance Design Build, we provide remodeling done well with love. Our commitments extend beyond our workplace and your home to support our community. We judge people by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin, and we believe all humans deserve quality, publicly funded education, childcare, and health care. But what do you believe in? At Chance Design Build, we believe every person must have the opportunity to thrive. If you're thinking about remodeling your home, go to chancedesignbuild.com to learn more about our commitments to you, your home, and our community.
The John and Gordy Show.
Let's go to the phone lines right now. We've got Joe on the line.
There's an article in the New Yorker. It's about Pete Hegseth, the kind of guy that you really don't want in a place of power. And apparently a whistleblower has let out that he was repeatedly intoxicated while acting in his official capacity. They mentioned that he had to be restrained from joining the dancers on the stage of a Louisiana strip club where he had brought his team.
Weekday mornings 6 till 8 on 92.7 WMDX. John Peterson and Gordy Young.
On our next show, Rocker will be in the studio with a Max Inc. preview.
And besides Pam Yonke being our guest, we're going to play some of John and Gordy's favorite Christmas music.
Yes.
The John and Gordy Show. Weekday mornings 6 till 8.
Live from the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show. And now, pursuing truth wherever it may lead, here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show. Broadcasting from Racine, I'm Matt Flynn of Matt Flynn Direct, guest host for Todd. Todd's in an airplane on the way to Seattle, Washington. Can't do the show from the airplane, so I said I would be happy to guest host for him. Going to Seattle because he's going to broadcast from there tomorrow. That's obviously where the Packers and the Seahawks are going to play. Our lines are open, 855-752-4842. We will take all calls. There are callers on the line, but before do not hang up. Do not hang up if you're on the line, but I'm going to pitch this to Mr. Zommers. We are doing a prize giveaway, and Mr. Zommers has all the details. Then we'll come back and go right to the lines. Do not hang up.
Yes, Todd and I talked about this yesterday in preparation, and here's that conversation now.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Zommers and Matt Flynn, my good friend, my great friend, Matt Flynn. Appreciate you guys filled in today. We are on the road. I am in a Delta jet, hopefully, as we speak right now, flying from Minneapolis to Seattle. We will bring you the show live from Seattle tomorrow as we preview the Packers taking on the Seahawks on Sunday. Our sports reporter, Mike Clemens, will be with us tomorrow as well, and many more surprises from Seattle. But right now, Mr. Zommers, time once again for the Civic Media's grown-up gift list text-to-win contest. Let's go.
A whip cracks, an angel gets his wings.
That's right. That's right. That's right. It is Civic Media's grown-up gift list. Now, Matt Flynn is an attorney. He can tell us whether or not we've taken too much liberty with intellectual property from It's a Wonderful Life. But you understand this is not for kids. You don't, Matt can speak for himself, but during the holidays, I enjoy an adult beverage. And, my little brandy. You don't want to give that to the kids. So here now is the grown-up gift list text-to-win contest. By the way, this is remarkable. Normally, it's the Civic Media attorneys out in the hallway. Civic has brought in an actual attorney. Matt Flynn is here to remind me that I have to tell you this is a statewide contest.
Yes, it is.
It's a statewide contest. All right. And so this hour, someone is going to win, hold your horses, an all-inclusive overnight getaway to Chula Vista Resort in Wisconsin Dells. Overnight getaway to Chula Vista Resort in Wisconsin Dells. It's a beautiful place. We've had our Civic Media party there. I know Matt's been there before, and his lovely wife, Mary. We enjoyed a breakfast together. It's a great place, Chula Vista. So someone this hour is going to win an overnight getaway to Chula Vista Resort in Wisconsin Dells. And then everyone is going to be entered in for one of 8 grand prizes chosen randomly by computer at the end of the contest in just over a week. Could be a robot vacuum, a humidifier, an espresso machine, a snow blower, or a set of luggage. And I bet you, Matt can speak for himself, I bet you in some of his books, some of his characters use luggage to get away.
I suppose so.
He can speak, but so you could win a set of luggage right out of a Matt Flynn novel in this contest as well. So you have 1 hour, little under 1 hour to text in. Here's how you do it. You download the Civic Media app to your iPhone or Android device. Go into the search bar of your app store. Type in Civic, CIVIC, Media. It'll pop up. You click the little CM logo. It's free. Takes less than a minute to download. It's what Gail King at CBS calls a deal. Then you open it up. The first 11 stations are the news talkers where we're at. Choose the one closest to you or just click on the one that looks pretty to you. And then when you open it up, it's going to say text down in the lower right-hand corner. Click that text icon. Now you're all set to go. So now I'm going to give you the word. Matt and Zommers are going to remind you throughout the hour and text this word. And then somebody this hour is going to win an overnight getaway to Chula Vista Resort in Wisconsin Dells. And everyone's going to be eligible to win one of those one of eight grand prizes at the end of this contest. All right, Mr. Zommers, the word this hour is winter. Winter, W-I-N-T-E-R. It certainly feels like winter today. The word this hour is winter. Text winter right now to the Civic Media app. Very chilly in Madison today, by the way. The winter has moved in. That's why I'm going out to 40 degrees and rain.
So much better. So much better.
Right. Look, I'm on the plane. I'm going to get out of here. Let Matt Flynn continue his outstanding show as always. Matt, I appreciate you so very much. You're doing yeoman's work. I respect you so much, and I know our listeners enjoy having you on, and I'm going to leave it to you and Zommers now to finish out the rest of the hour. Again, remind folks, the word is winter, W-I-N-T-E-R. Text the word winter right now. It's a statewide contest. For right now, though, I'm on a plane. I'm leaving on a jet plane and back to more of our great show with our guest host, Matt Flynn. That's great.
Thank you, Todd. That was very good. Todd, have a safe trip. Have a safe trip. Great to hear from you. We're going back to the lines. I hope Corrine in Milwaukee is still on. If you are, thank God, because this has been a long delay. Corrine, what's on your mind today? And thank you for calling.
Hi. Hello?
Yes. What's on your mind
hi.
today, Corrine? Hi. Go ahead.
Hi, Matt. Nice to hearing you again. You have a very, healthy, energized voice, and I'm glad that you're still doing what you like.
Thank you.
And I absolutely agree with you in terms of abortion, that just to say, we just have lost our freedom is not good enough, because besides what you said absolutely accurately, there's also a fact that now we have more and more that drop off boxes babies. So can you imagine in the 20 years we have a generation of babies who our parents didn't want them to have, couldn't have it, whatever the reason is, they couldn't even go through adoption process. They just dropped them off in the box. What a generation we're going to have. And I know you know, that after they actually did that federal law, put that federal law in place, in 20 years later, this country had a dramatic decrease of crime. And they figured it out, that it's due to that the people do not have unwanted children. And it's a big thing to do for a human being to know that somebody wanted you to be here in this world. And another thing about the Biden and Democrats, I'm upset, everybody upset. But the thing is, you have to shake it off, and we have to get into at least the topics what we are interested in, which is take the money out of politics. Republicans are talking about it. So why wouldn't we be there too? Because we're not going to allow this country be run just by one kind of opinion.
You hit the nail on the head, Corinne. Thank you for calling. I really like your opinions, and feel free to call in anytime. Thank you very much. Mr. Zommers, is anyone else on?
Yes, we have Nick in Lake Mills.
Nick in Lake Mills, my friend. Thanks for calling. Nick, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Matt. Well, a little different twist from our previous caller. I remember when you had the morning show about 3 years ago, I'm going into work, and we're talking about Donald Trump and the indictments, and he appointed Merrick Garland, and Merrick Garland was dragging his feet, and we watched 4 years of him stretching out court cases and all this stuff, but they couldn't get the work done because of bad optics or policy or whatever it was. So now here we are with Donald Trump, the president-elect, and we got an inauguration coming up. So with Biden, with apparently these new presidential powers that the Supreme Court awarded a president and official acts, where's our SEAL Team 6? Where's our Packer sweep? How are we going to inaugurate this guy? Is Vice President Harris going to have to certify the election? What if she decides not to? What if he is such a threat to this country? How is he allowed to take office? What happens if he has a heart attack and he chokes on amphetamines or something like that down in Mar-a-Lago? If he doesn't make the inauguration, is there going to be another election? Like, how are we allowing this to happen?
Yeah, Nick, thank you. Let me tell you, I'm going to just quick hit a couple of legal points about what you raised. Kamala Harris will certify him. In 1960, Richard Nixon as VP certified John Kennedy, who'd beaten him. So there's precedent for it, and it's not pleasant. The question is, do you believe that there was systemic fraud to the point that it changed the result? Do you believe that? Now, in 2020, Trump said there was, and he was lying, and his people went up and they beat up and they injured 140 police officers. We don't do that kind of thing. The Ruskies clearly interfered, or people on behalf of Trump calling in bomb threats to the Navajo reservation, to inner city polling precincts. They're a violent party. A fish rots from the head down, and Trump is rotting, and that is all very true. But what do you do when we nevertheless lost about 9 or 10% of our support in Manhattan and in Chicago, which was not due to chicanery? My best guess is that Kamala Harris will certify it, and we have to stand by and be as vigilant on our toes. History occurs every second of every day. There's no vacation from history, whether you're awake or asleep, and you're not woke unless you know history. You're not woke until you know history. Constant vigilance is the price of freedom. Thanks a lot for calling, Nick. Always like hearing from you, and I hope you continue to call. We're coming up on another break. Mr. Zommers, if there are more callers, please tell them to hold on. We'll get back to them. And what I want to introduce when we get into the next segment is the race for DNC chairman. We have a Wisconsin guy, Ben Wickler, a friend of mine, a terrific state chair running. I support him, and I want to explain what the dynamics are in that race. Back very, very soon. Do not hang up.
Real news and great conversation. 92.7.
We've got two people on the line. There's Keith and Broadhead.
Yeah. Okay.
And Jack and Merrimack.
Okay, Jack and Keith and Marinette and Broadhead. Thank you. I'll go to them. I'm going to make a brief statement of the DNC race, and then I'm going to go to that.
Sounds good.
When you're behind
Thank
the
you.
wheel, give driving your undivided attention.
Don't drive distracted. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
The John and Gordy Show.
What is this 15 people orgy that's going on?
A new Senate report says only 6% of federal workers go into the office 5 days a week. And the only federal workers showing up to the office are having sex with each other. Our report stated there was a 12-person orgy, but we have to issue a correction. It was 15.
It's not so bad working for the federal government after all.
Weekday mornings 6 till 8 on 92.7 WMDX. Matt Nair on air. This shouldn't be a thing.
Michigan man leads lawnmower chase. I'll stop, says the suspect. Instead, he reaches under the seat and pulls out a gun.
Shoots himself in the hand.
The deputy has his taser trained on him, and yes, he tased him.
I'm not advocating for crime, but boost something that goes faster than cop on foot.
Matt Nair on air. Weekdays at 11 on 92.7 WMDX and the Civic Media app.
Out here in the middle of these acres, it can feel like you're the only person on earth. That's how it feels when you're struggling with your mental health. But you don't have to feel alone. Find more information at loveyourmindtoday.org.
About 20 seconds.
Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
Fear you may be.
Well, you wonder why I always dress in
Welcome
black.
back. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show. Matt Flynn, guest host. We're going to go right to the lines. We have two people at least holding. But before we do, I want to follow up on my brief statement before the break. Ben Wickler, the chair of the Wisconsin Democratic Party, is running to head the whole shebang, the whole Democratic National Committee. There are three opponents, but only one of them really has any chops at all. That's Ken Martin, who's the state chair in Minnesota. The other two are Martin O'Malley. He's a former Maryland governor, ran for president at one point, and a state senator from New York. It's really between Ben Wickler and Ken Martin. And I want to make this statement, and I'm not just saying it because I'm a former state chairman myself. Ben Wickler is a great guy and the most effective state chair in the country. He's raised very, very good money to support our candidates. He has very skillfully negotiated divisions within the Democratic Party. We absolutely need him. And so anything you can do, you have no vote. They're going to vote at the beginning of February out in D.C. But when you know people who are on the state Democratic Committee, the Ad Committee, or Democratic National Committee representatives, people you know in your hometown, make it clear Ben Wickler is our guy. He is our state chairman here in Wisconsin. He's going to be the next chairman of the Democratic National Committee. We're going to the lines. Do not hang up. We're going to start with Keith of Broadhead. Keith, thanks for calling. What's in your mind today, Keith?
Hey, good afternoon, Matt. Long time no hear, man. I love hearing you on here.
Great to have you back,
How you
Keith.
been doing?
Yeah, tell me what you're thinking.
Well, here's what I'm thinking, Matt. Ben, I do like Ben. He's a good guy. You're right. And I think he's a very effective leader for the state, and I think he would be an effective leader for the national. My position on our policies going forward as far as Democrats is, or focus rather, we need to get back into rural America. We need to work our butts off to show rural America we care about them. We have completely lost them. We've lost their faith in Democratic policies for the last 20 years, maybe longer. If we don't do something to get back in there, we're done. We can't just rely on the cities and the liberal bastions. If you look at every single state in this country, probably 65 to 70% of the state, as far as land area, is red. The rest is blue. And I understand the policy, as far as population and so forth goes, but we need to get rural America back. We need to get our unions back in force, and we need to get them showing rural America that Democrats really care about them more than the Republicans do, because we do, Matt. Republicans don't care about them. They say
Right.
They talk all the good game, Second Amendment, religious this, religion that. But when it comes down to it, they do not vote in the best interest of the blue-collar workers, period, end of story.
Right. No, you hit the nail on the head. And why don't you and I remind everybody of the following. At one time, Dave Obey represented, Democrat, friend of mine, represented northern Wisconsin. Al Baldus, friend of mine, Democrat, represented La Crosse, Eau Claire, and western Wisconsin. Les Aspin, friend of mine, represented the 1st Congressional District and all the rural areas between Janesville and Kenosha. And so we had people up in the 8th Congressional District. We had Father Bob Cornell, and we had other Democrats that represented the Green Bay and the northeastern part of the state. So it has happened in the past, and it will happen again. And I understand what some of the issues are and all that. But our state candidates have won. Tammy Ball, our senator, won. She won some of those, at least did better in many of those areas, and actually won some of them. Tony Evers got elected twice, and Josh Call's been elected. Sarah Godlewski's been elected. So people kind of get it in this state, but I think what you're saying has a lot of resonance to it, and that is there's got to be a plain, flat-out statement. Because remember something, at one time, the rural areas throughout the country were Democratic. That was true in Nebraska. That was true in Kansas. That was true in the South. And it can and will happen again. And whatever it is, and one guy, two guys aren't smart enough to do it by themselves, but the consensus, the common wisdom is, how do we let people know that the Democratic Party is the party that shares their values and that we are the Americans? We're not the cult of Trump. Thanks a lot for calling. Jack of Merrimack, my friend, thanks for calling. Jack, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, well, first of all, your statement about fascism creeping in on little cat's feet, I think, is a bit old-fashioned. Fascism has rumbled in on Clydesdale hoofs these days. I want to mention a couple of statements from a German-American historian who studied the Nazis extensively, and you may know of her. Her name is Hannah Arendt. And,
yes, I do.
Yes, I do. I'm not surprised. Two of these statements that she's made are as follows. First, the constant lying is not aimed at making people believe the lie, but to ensure that no one believes anything anymore. And the second statement, which gets to the heart of our problem here in this country, is the ideal subject of totalitarian rule is not the convinced Nazi nor the dedicated communist, but people for whom the distinction between fact and fiction, true and false, no longer exists. Now, obviously, if you can't tell the truth from fiction, how can you tell whom to vote for? So
Right.
What do? You vote for the loudest, the most recent voice, which for the last 4, and I'd even say as many as 9 years since 2015, has been the MAGA. They've been amplified by the media, even the legitimate media that allows the repetition of those lies with little or no rebuttal. Among other things, the legitimate media should have constantly been saying, this guy is a felon, this guy instituted an attempted insurrection, trying to overturn a legitimate election in America. He tried to take over American government.
Right.
But they haven't been repeating that nearly as much as all you've heard is the MAGA lies. Oh, the immigrants are rapists and they're
Right.
drug lords.
Jack, you're hitting the nail on the head, and we have to go to a brief break. Thank you for calling. Hannah Arendt is also the one that came up with the phrase, the banality of evil, that evil people sometimes are just banal as hell, and it's not till too late that you find that out. We're going to step away a little bit. Jack, thanks for calling. The lines are open. We'll be back shortly.
But I'll try to carry off a little darkness on my back till
The
things are
grown-up
brighter.
gift list text to win contest. Text the word winter, WINTER. I just figured I'd say that. in there at the end.
Terrific. Yeah. Anybody else on the line?
Yes, Anne in Chippewa Falls.
Okay, we'll go to her when I get back.
Sounds good.
On Facebook, X, and Instagram.
For 92.7 WMDX News, I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. Man, it is a cold one today. Make sure you're bundled up safely whenever you're outside. Right now, we're in the middle of the coldest snap we've had so far this season. All it takes is about half an hour for exposed skin to start to get frostbite. We started out the morning with wind chills of 10 below, and in some spots it felt even colder than that. Remember, if you need help paying heating bills or you need a warm place to sleep, you can always call 211 Wisconsin. But luckily for us, this cold isn't sticking around long. By the end of the weekend, we may even hit 40 degrees. Meanwhile, Madison has nixed its plan to create a pilot program charging money to park at city parks. Originally, you would have had to pay to park at some city parks just on a trial basis as they figure out whether this is a good plan or not. But they got some backlash, and there seemed to be misunderstandings among staff about how it would work. So at least for now, the idea has been shelved. And it's that time of year for holiday scams, and they are pervasive. Lisa Hale reports.
According to the AARP, 80% of Americans were targeted by at least one holiday scam last year. Scams are so prevalent, they're a global business, says Grant Wheat, Vice President of Risk Management at Verva Credit Union.
This has become its own commerce, right? Fraud, scams is its own business now. In the U.S. alone, last year was estimated $130 billion of American wealth transferred to scammers. And globally, we're looking at over a $3 trillion business across the globe when it comes to fraud and scams.
Wheat says to avoid being scammed, slow down, scrutinize every non-solicited email or text, and reach out to someone you trust before sending any money, gift cards, or Bitcoin.
And I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. You're listening to 92.7 WMDX News.
On your entertainment beat, I'm Pete Schwaba. You might think Americans don't work as hard as they used to, but that is not true at all when it comes to TV watching. Tube viewing was up 5% overall for the month of November, but that does not include Thanksgiving, which would have driven the numbers up even higher. According to Nielsen, the reason for the increased viewing was the election, World Series, and the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul Snooze Fest. A Nielsen pie graph shows broadcast networks with 23.7% of viewers. Streaming services accounted for 41.5%, which is up 1% from the previous month. Cable accounted for 25% of TV watching. In the category of other on the graph, it showed 9.7%. I'm guessing those are people who just leave the TV on and stare at the Roku home screen indecisively. Speaking of streaming, Netflix really hit a home run last month with the Tyson-Paul fight, even though it left viewers watching mostly a rotating buffering ball. Netflix's The Lincoln Lawyer was the most viewed streamer for the month with 3.9 billion views. Well done, couch potatoes. For more showbiz fun, tune in to Nightlight with me, Pete Schwaba, weeknights from 6 to 8 p.m. on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Enjoying this local program? Find the complete Civic Media lineup at civicmedia.us or the Civic Media app.
It may look pretty outside, but it does not feel like it. With high temperatures today trying to tap 10 degrees, those feisty winds are really making it feel more like 5 to 15 below. Overnight lows bottom out near 0, and for tomorrow, slightly warmer, rising to near 20. I'm meteorologist Brittany Merlot. Currently, it's 4.
I'm Dan Schaefer. Let's recombobulate. Big news in Wisconsin this month, as much of the controversial anti-union Act 10 law was struck down in a ruling by Dane County Circuit Court Judge Jacob Frost. 2 takeaways on this. 1, the ruling gets at the heart of what has always made this law so brazenly political, by defining public safety employees differently from general public employees. That decision was pretty clearly made not based on across-the-board policy, but on which unions
We have
backed
a little
Scott
less than a
Walker
minute till
for
we go back
governor in
on.
2010. It would be fitting if
Can
that is what
I say
ultimately
something about the
spells
contest
end
when
for
we
this
pick back up?
controversial law.
Sure, I'll pitch it
Secondly,
to
this
you.
case is headed to an appeal.
Do we have
which
Ann of
almost
Chippewa
certainly
Falls?
will
Who
end up
else?
At the Wisconsin
Just her.
Supreme Court.
Yeah,
While
thank
this case still might be decided by the court's current 4-3 liberal majority, it's a good reminder of just how important the upcoming race for state Supreme Court will be.
Find all of Dan's work at the Recombobulation.
Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show. Matt Flynn sitting as guest host, broadcasting from Racine, and Mr. Zommers. Could you give us a brief update on this puzzle contest? We want to see as many people as possible win. How's it going?
Yeah, so the Grown Up Gift List text to win statewide contest is going on throughout the rest of this week and next week. And right now, people who text in during this hour are eligible to win an overnight stay at Chula Vista Resort in Wisconsin Dells. The keyword to text in on the Civic Media app is winter, WINTER. And throughout the rest of the contest, it'll be alternating in random order between the Chula Vista Resort getaways and $100 cash. And everybody gets entered in to win one of 8 grand prizes at the end of next week. So make sure you have the Civic Media app, text in winter, and pay attention throughout the week ahead to hear the other keywords.
Terrific information. Thank you, Mr. Zommers. Now we're going to go right to the lines. This show is all about the lines. Ann of Chippewa Falls, my friend. Thanks for calling, Ann. What's on your mind today?
Yes, I just have 2 comments. First of all, rural areas, they should be pro-Democrat. We have free and reduced meals for children in school, and parents are struggling. We have daycare costs lowered, Social Security saved, housing, affordable housing. I could go on and on. I'm not sure what these people voted for. And as far as abortion, I'm tired of Republicans saying we are the party of killing babies. I'm pro-women, period. I'm pro-women. It's health care, period, for women. I'm not pro-abortion. And this is what they do. They change the message to make us look like we're baby killers. I get so tired of this message. I am a Democrat, and I believe in women. Women have the right to make what's best for their bodies. And I don't understand why people, if this was men, if men had to get fixed, I bet it would be a way different situation. Anyways, I just wanted to share those, and I love what you're doing, and I appreciate you taking my call.
Thank you very much, Ann. Very, 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 very profound comments. And I will say this. Remember, as far as the rural area, my friend Bill Proxmire, who is my mentor, he's one of the guys that got me into politics, and as a good friend and mentor, Bill Proxmire in 1976 got 70% of the vote, 70% of the vote in Wisconsin. 70%, Bill Proxmire, Democrat. He got 66% of the vote in Waukesha County. Bill Proxmire, Democrat, 1976. Gaylord Nelson won heavily statewide. It can be done. It will be done again. And I'm going to leave you one more fact. In West Virginia, 60% of the population over 62, their only income is Social Security, 60%. Nationwide, bumping up on 50% of the people, their only income is Social Security. So in the Trump people, Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon Musk, and Trump goes, well, yeah, they weren't elected to anything. They weren't elected to anything. And, Elon Musk is from South Africa. Then he moved to Canada. As an adult, he came here to the United States. Vivek Ramaswamy, I think, was born here. His parents were from India. But do you think that Vivek Ramaswamy and do you think that Elon Musk care about you? Really? Remember, in the caste system in India, the lower class people, the untouchables, called Dalits, D-A-L-I-T, Sanskrit word meaning oppressed or burdened, they treat them like dogs. Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk look on the average person as to be treated like a dog. And if they ever start cutting Social Security, we're going to get back to like pre-Franklin Roosevelt, where old folks had to move in with their kids, or they'd be in a hut in the woods somewhere eating cat food with no heat. And this has got to stop. And people in rural areas have got to be told by our friends, because I have relatives in Wisconsin Rapids, Random Lake, Monroe, and Hayward. Now, Hayward, Monroe, Wisconsin, down in Greene County, Random Lake in Sheboygan County, okay, and Whiskey Rapids. We want our Social Security, period, end of story. We don't want Vivek Ramaswamy or Elon Musk lying about it and then pulling a fast one at the end. I want to talk about something, the point of personal privilege, And Todd will strongly encourage this. As you may know, I'm an author. I've written 5 books. They're all available wherever books are sold. But there's one that I think that you may want to consider during the holiday period as a stocking stuffer. I wrote a 3-book series by contract with Speaking Volumes Publishers about a math genius, a kid who's a high school kid, then a college kid, then a grad student, who is the greatest mathematical mind in the history of mankind. Obviously, it's a superpower. I put him in on it. The 3 books are Hunting Bernie Weber. This is the Bernie Weber Math Genius series. Hunting Bernie Weber, China Code, and Milwaukee Jihad. And in it, Bernie has to solve seemingly insolvable mathematical problems to break the codes of the Chinese and ISIS to prevent a catastrophe. They're basically very humorous. They're comedies. The idea is that people that, if you don't like math, you do like math, you're afraid of math, you go, oh, math, and then you think, what, a goblin jumped out of a tree at you. This is a way, I've seen kids that from high school, middle school read it and laughed because he's a boy hero and he does the right thing. He comes from the wrong side of the tracks. And there's no math in it in the sense that would scare you, equations or any of that stuff. It's very common sense. You may really get a kick out of it. So it would be a point of personal privilege to me if you would consider. You get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Google Reads, Apple Reads, anywhere. But go on Amazon somewhere and go, Matthew J. Flynn. There's 4 Matthew Flynns who write books, so you don't want the other 3. I'm not saying they're bad guys, but my book, Matthew Flynn, Bernie Weber Math Genius series, 3 volumes. And in Hunting Bernie Weber, Bernie gets chased all around, in that case, Milwaukee. And if you know Milwaukee, you know River West, UWM, Three Brothers Restaurant, Brady Street, you will get a real kick out of where Bernie is chased and how he gets away and how he solves the problem. In China Code, the Chinese come over to get him, the Chi-Coms, and Bernie takes care of business. And in Milwaukee Jihad, ISIS comes over to take care of him, and Bernie takes care of business. You really get a kick out of it. Bernie Weber Math Genius series by Matthew J. Flynn. And I'd appreciate very much if you consider getting 1 or all 3 of them as stocking stuffers for your friends and your family. I want to hit another issue that's absolutely critical, and that is the issue of the Supreme Court race coming up in April. There'll be a primary in February. There are only 2 candidates right now. They can file by the beginning of January. There may be more. But the 2 principal candidates, Susan Crawford and Brad Schimmel. I know Susan Crawford. She's a judge in Dane County. She's a good judge. She's actually a very independent judge. And she was a lawyer in a great firm in Madison, headed up by my law school classmate and friend, Les Pines. She's a good litigator, good lawyer, independent and honest. Her opponent, and I'm going to vote for her opponent is Brad Schimmel. Brad Schimmel is a Republican. He used to be Attorney General. Josh Call beat him. He is a judge in Waukesha County now. He is, to put it charitably, a flatline trumper. Do not, if you're in discussions with friends or neighbors or hear this race mentioned, say, oh, it's a case between a liberal and a conservative. It is not. It is a case between a one circuit judge, Susan Crawford, with good litigation experience in a private firm, who's very, very independent and always comports herself with the greatest judicial demeanor, and Brad Schimmel, who frankly is a Trumper. Trumpers are not conservatives. Trumpers are part of the cult of Trump. We've seen his skeleton hand reach into the federal judiciary, corrupt the U.S. Supreme Court, corrupt some of the federal bench. He should not be able to extend his skeleton hand into the Wisconsin Supreme Court. That he can't do. I was a law clerk when I got out of law school. I'm a graduate of UW-Madison Law School. And I was a law clerk for one of the greatest judges in Wisconsin history, Thomas E. Fairchild. Thomas E. Fairchild was on the Wisconsin Supreme Court for 10 years, and then Lyndon Johnson made him a federal judge, and he was the chief judge of the U.S. Court of Appeals in the Seventh Circuit in Chicago, just under the U.S. Supreme Court. Good friend of Hubert Humphrey. If Hubert had won the 1968 election, Tom Fairchild was his number one choice for the Supreme Court. And to think of Tom Fairchild being on the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and then what Brad Schimmel is trying to do is just wrong. I mean, it frankly is wrong. This is not a race between a liberal and a conservative. This is a race between a measured independent judge who sits on the bench in the circuit court in Dane County against a flatline Trumper. It is very important that Trump's fingers do not get into the Wisconsin Supreme Court. We've already had some Wisconsin legislators who have sucked up to Trump so massively. Remember the one guy a couple of years ago? He was afraid of Trump, and he wrote to Trump, and he said, "I have your picture on my socks." What man says, "I have another man's picture on his socks"? What kind of a weird thing is that? Why not put his picture on your skivvies, for God's sake? I mean, this is ridiculous. These people are afraid of Trump. They are Trumpers, and you can't have that in the judiciary. You just simply can't have it in the judiciary. Give you an example. Trump has threatened Liz Cheney, Benny Thompson, Christopher Wray, the outgoing FBI director. He threatened Christopher Wray for, quote, invading my house in Mar-a-Lago. Hey, hold the phone. He had a subpoena because you refused to turn over confidential secret documents, and they went and found them. You had them stacked in the bathroom. You had them stacked in the bathroom so the Ruskies could have busboys and maids and guests go there and browse through them, see what information we'd gotten from the Ruskies, from our agents, then arrest the agents. In the year after Trump did that, we lost an unusually high number of agents in Russia. They were captured and executed, and the CIA put out a station memo to all stations, which was covered in the New York Times. Somehow they got access to it. It said, we're losing assets in these countries. We don't know why. Be careful. Be careful. And this guy, Trump, is threatening people for what? Exercising subpoenas for catching him with top secret documents. He didn't have them in some confidential place. He had them in the bathroom and in a supply closet and a dressing room for brides over the ballroom, so that fake busboys, fake maids, guests, spies all over Mar-a-Lago. How many spies do you think there are in Mar-a-Lago right now? How many? It's a public place. You can go in there and you roam around. That's what he did. And we do not want him doing that in the Wisconsin Supreme Court. We must elect Susan Crawford. We cannot elect Brad Schimmel. That's very, very important. And we've got to stand up for Trump. One of the tough things is going to be if somebody in the CIA, if he says, I want a list of all our secret agents in Russia, do you give it to him? I don't think you do. I don't think you do. Okay, we're going to step away briefly. We're coming back. The lines are open. The lines are open. This is About the Lines, coming back very short.
And remember, for the grown-up gift list text to win contest, the keyword this hour for a stay at Chula Vista Resort is winter.
Anybody on the line, Summers?
Yes, we have, let's see, Mark from Prairie du Sac.
Okay.
Gary from Madison. And Robert in Eau Claire.
Very good. I'll take them in order. Thank you very much.
Christmas lights that will light up our kids' faces. A new adventure.
And Matt in Middleton.
It makes us wonder,
Okay.
why didn't we do this sooner? Start planning your time
Okay.
together.
I'll take each, and I'll ask them each to leave it at a minute. Their
Right, okay.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. We have state updates today, including North Carolina's Supreme Court race and a power grab by its legislature, ranked choice voting in Alaska, and more charges in Wisconsin for Donald Trump's fake elector scheme advisors. We reported December 11th that a GOP state Supreme Court candidate who lost by 734 votes and failed in 2 recounts asked the North Carolina Election Board to invalidate 60,000 voters.
There's also Allie in Madison. So whoever we get to, it's good to have extra people for sure.
Also December 11th,
Very good,
the
thank
North Carolina legislature overrode Governor Roy Cooper's veto of a bill designed to strip power from the incoming Democratic governor and attorney general. In an attempt to retain GOP power before it loses its supermajority, the authority to appoint election board members was shifted to the state auditor, a Republican. The Attorney General was also stripped of any ability to bring suit against legislation proposed by the legislature. In Alaska, a recount of the attempted repeal of ranked choice voting and open primaries is complete. The repeal failed by 0.25%. In Wisconsin, 10 additional felony forgery charges were brought against Trump campaign advisors, attorney.
Welcome back. Todd Allbaugh Show, Matt Flynn, direct guest host. We have 5 callers on the line, and I have 6 minutes to fit you in. Thank you for calling. I'm going to get to each of you if I can. Please confine your comments or questions to 45 seconds. We're going to start with Mark from the SAC. Thanks for calling, Mark. 45 seconds. What do you got?
Yeah, thanks so much. Well, let's remember that Brad Schimmel actually, gave Scott Jensen a get-out-of-jail-free card so he could continue to be a lobbyist, and how much money has Mr. Schimmel got from the hire masters of Scott Jensen. And I think it's particularly ironic, going that, was it Comer or one of the other Republicans are saying there's so much fraud in Medicare and all that, when the biggest fraudster in American history up to that one point in time is a colleague of them, Rick Scott of Florida. He'd take the fifth how many times? And that was for United Healthcare.
Right. That's an excellent point. You're right. Rick Scott took the fifth many times before a grand jury on Medicare fraud. Thank you very much, as always, Mark. Gary of Madison, my friend, 45 seconds. Thanks for calling. What's on your mind today?
Good afternoon, Matt. Great to hear you again. I wanted to ask, since I believe that enough states have signed on for the Equal Rights Amendment, what is it that Biden can do at this point?
That's a very good point. And Biden can support it publicly. He is supporting it publicly, the ERA, and that's been kicking around a long time. It has to pass, obviously, as an amendment, the House, and then it has to go to 3/4 of the states. He has 6 weeks to go. He should get behind it very, very hard. Thank you a lot for calling. Excellent call. Robert is next up. Robert, and I'm not clear where you're from. Alma, I think. Robert, what's on your mind today?
Eau Claire.
Eau Claire, I beg
From
your
Eau Claire,
pardon.
man.
Close enough. Sorry, my handwriting's bad. What's on your mind today, Robert?
That's fine. No problem. Listen, I just wanted to quickly say thank you for the work that you're doing and for the work through civic media that's being done. There needs to be much more of it. The legacy media helped get Trump elected. And, and I think the Democrats just need to be, you were talking about it earlier, much more aggressive. It's like, I don't know they need to wake up, be much more aggressive, and take care of business. It's like with Merrick Garland, it's like Trump should have been in jail 2 years ago.
Right. That's a very profound point. Civic media is really the only commercial station in the state that is between us and this MAGA crew. I mean, public radio is great, and obviously there's some TV, MSNBC, but civic media is it. And I really appreciate it. And you're right. I mean, Merrick Garland, to be very honest with you, I think was a very weak, ineffective attorney general. I think that Biden picked him because he had a lot of stature. He'd been nominated for the Supreme Court, but he sat back. He was timid. He wouldn't bring prosecutions early on. He wouldn't do a lot of things. And he didn't understand that when you're fighting against a fascist front, frankly, is what you're fighting against, a violent front, you've got to be much more aggressive. You're exactly right. Thank you. Matt of Middleton, my friend, you're next. What's in your mind today, Matt?
Hey, Mr. Flynn. So good to hear you. About rural America and farmers, just tell them about Musk and these fascists that want to privatize farmland and give it to corporate billionaires. They are trying to steal from the treasury, steal from the country. This was a civil war that we did not want to wake up to because Roger Stone and these Christian nationalists have been around for decades. They were a threat in the 30s, and they're back. And yeah, Democrats didn't take it serious, and I agree with the previous callers. Thanks a lot, Matt.
Thank you. Excellent comments. And the thing is, if somebody makes $1 billion and it starts a company, employs people, fine, that's terrific. But Elon Musk has too much power, and Vivek Ramaswamy has too much power. They weren't elected to a damn thing, and they're trying to subvert the power of the person, the Congress. We've got to stand up to that kind of illegitimate exercise of power. Finally, Allie, I'm not sure if you're Middleton or Madison, but Allie, what's on your mind today?
Hi, I'm in Madison. I'm thinking about Josh Call and Trupas. If there's a trial, are they going to call the false electors to testify? And the other point about that is, are Trupas kind of in the hard spot because if he claims Trump was fraudulent to him, but yet he has to be very careful, he'll get on Trump's naughty list. So that's all I got.
You're a good lawyer because I think Trupas is the guy that actually pled guilty down in Georgia, so he'll have a hard time changing his tune. I think Trump, they're death threats. I mean, Trump is the kind of guy who is violent by encouraging others to make death threats. As far as will the fake electors be called, Josh Call could decide to call them, and also the defense could decide to call them. I think the defense, to save their worthless skins, may call them to try to minimize what, say, Trupas did and Roman did and this other one. But I think it's an insufficient prosecution when all 10 fake electors get off scot-free and they're being presented as they themselves haven't been defrauded. What's that all about? Come on. These guys snuck around. They snuck in there. They were told not to tell the press. They went, oh, that's great. If you're an honest person, a guy goes, hey, I want you to come to a meeting and conceal it. I go, why am I going to that meeting? What kind of crazy stuff is going to happen there? Well, let me tell you something. I really enjoyed guest hosting for my friend Todd. Todd will be back tomorrow from Seattle, Washington. Thank you for all the callers. Terrific. We learned a lot from your calls. And this is Matt Flynn Direct signing off for Todd Allbaugh.